Outpost Helios 9 floated in the dark like a wounded giant, its metal body scarred by past battles and glowing with warning lights as alarms rang through every corridor. Because once again danger was coming from the deep black of space. The station guarded the last jump path to Earth, and everyone on board knew that if Helios 9 fell, humanity's home would be next. Lance Corrin, a human mechanic who also flew fighters when pilots were short, stood inside the main hangar with grease on his hands and fear sitting heavy in his chest. He had repaired ships nonstop for days, sleeping in short bursts, eating whatever he could find, because the war against the Xeric Dominion never truly stopped. On the large tactical screen above the hangar, red enemy marks slowly appeared, each one meaning a hostile ship moving closer. The Xeric were an old alien empire, cold and proud, with advanced weapons and soldiers made for war, and they had already crushed many races before turning their eyes toward human space. Humanity was young compared to them, weaker in weapons and numbers, yet still standing, and Helios 9 was proof of that stubborn resistance. Fighters launched one after another, engines screaming as pilots rushed to meet the coming storm, while Lance scanned damage reports and cursed under his breath, seeing how badly worn the fleet was. Many ships flew only because human hands refused to give up on broken metal. As he worked, a calm but sharp voice filled the hangar through the speakers, ordering pilots to return to formation and stop acting on emotion. Everyone recognized that voice immediately. It belonged to Commander Verexakal, the Xeric officer placed in charge of the Joint Defense Force. She was tall, alien, and known for her icy control, never raising her voice, never showing fear or humor. To many humans, she felt distant and unfeeling, yet even they had to admit she was a brilliant commander. Lance listened to her orders and felt his frustration rise. He was tired of constant death, tired of fear, tired of pretending he was not scared. Without thinking too much, driven by stress and that strange human need to laugh in the face of danger, he opened a private command channel meant only for official messages. His fingers hovered for a moment, then typed a playful, foolish line, teasing the commander about how cold she sounded and joking that she might melt his heart if she was not careful. The moment he sent it, regret hit him hard. Xeric culture did not understand jokes like that. Disrespect toward a superior, especially an alien one, could mean punishment or worse. Lance stared at the screen, waiting for an angry reply, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Nothing came back. The silence felt heavier than shouting. Around him, the hangar stayed busy, unaware of his mistake, while outside the station enemy ships continued their slow, deadly approach. 6 long minutes passed, each one stretching painfully, until suddenly the hangar doors hissed open behind him. Cold air rushed in, and heavy footsteps echoed across the metal floor. Lance turned slowly, his stomach tight, and there she was. Commander Verexakal stood in the doorway, her silver-blue skin catching the red emergency lights, her alien eyes glowing with calm intensity. Conversations around the hangar died instantly as everyone froze, sensing tension without knowing why. She walked toward Lance with steady steps, her presence commanding silence without effort, and stopped in front of him. For a long moment she simply looked at him, studying his face as if trying to understand something strange and new. Then she spoke in a quiet, controlled voice, asking him to explain his message. Before Lance could answer, the station shook violently as the first enemy shot struck Helios 9 shields, and reports of incoming boarding craft echoed through the speakers. The war had arrived at their doorstep. In that moment, with death closing in and an alien commander standing before him, Lance realized that one careless joke had brought him face to face with something far bigger than punishment. It had placed him at the center of a clash between two species, one ancient and cold, the other young and burning with stubborn hope. And as the first battle alarm screamed louder, the fate of both seemed tied to what would happen next. The battle erupted like a storm as the first Zirac Dominion ships dropped out of hyperspace, black shapes glinting with deadly intent against the backdrop of stars, and the human fleet scrambled to respond, engines roaring and shields flaring as missiles streaked across space, leaving trails of fire that reflected in the eyes of every pilot who knew they were likely facing their last fight. Inside the hangar of Helios 9, Lance Corrin gripped the controls of his patched-together fighter, the smell of burnt circuitry and hot metal filling his nose, while Commander Virexa moved beside him, silent but alert, her alien eyes scanning the tactical displays with precision and cool judgment. Despite her reputation for coldness, her presence was unsettling and inspiring at once. Humans moved differently around her, their fear and determination mixing into a strange energy that even Lance could feel, the tension sharp in every movement. Boarding pods crashed into the hull of Helios 9, their impact sending shudders through the metal structure, and from each pod, Zirac soldiers leapt with terrifying speed and strength, their claws cutting through doors and walls as they sought to breach the inner defenses. Human Marines met them with steady aim, rifles spitting bullets that sometimes passed through the aliens' armor, and hand-to-hand combat broke out in corridors where sparks flew and screams echoed. But even as humans fell, more surged forward, refusing to retreat, driven by a stubborn will to survive that no alien could break. Lance climbed into his fighter, checking systems that were only barely functional, patched together with duct tape and hope, and Virexa watched him curiously, her expression unreadable, clearly unfamiliar with the way human technology could be more than it seemed, capable of surprises born from ingenuity rather than raw power. "Ever flown human tech?" Lance asked, keeping his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Virexa shook her head slightly, and Lance grinned, tapping the controls as the fighter's engines roared to life, revealing hidden compartments and overcharged weapons that gave it capabilities far beyond what the Zirac would expect. Outside, the human ship surged forward with reckless bravery, dodging plasma fire, ramming enemy vessels, and even sacrificing their own damaged ships to take down larger, more powerful opponents, each action a testament to human courage and creativity, the kind of fighting spirit that could not be measured in firepower alone. Explosions lit the void as enemy dreadnoughts shook under concentrated fire, one human pilot laughing in the midst of a burning cockpit as he steered his ship straight into an alien cruiser, the collision detonating both vessels in a blinding flash. Virex's eyes widened, alien muscles tensing in disbelief, because nothing in Zirac training could explain why humans would charge into death with such reckless precision and still survive, their courage amplified by desperation and the knowledge that Earth itself waited behind them. Communications were filled with tension, reports of casualties and heroism blending together. As Lance maneuvered through the chaos, weaving between debris and enemy fire, improvising attacks that no tactical manual had ever described, all while keeping Virexa alive beside him, she began asking questions quietly, almost to herself, about why humans laughed before danger, why they did not retreat even when facing certain death. Lance answered simply, because humans did not have the luxury of surrendering. They fought with everything they had because they valued their home, their families, and the few moments of life that remained precious even in the midst of destruction. The Dominion flagship appeared then, massive and black, its hull bristling with weapons that could wipe out entire sectors, a looming presence that froze the blood of every human pilot who saw it, and for the first time, some of the brave started whispering that perhaps this fight was beyond them. Lance looked at the colossal ship and felt a surge of fear. But he also felt determination sharpen like a blade. remembering all the humans who had fallen, all the hopes tied to this fight, and all the reasons why surrender was never an option. Virexa studied him, sensing the unusual blend of recklessness and brilliance, and realized that humans did not measure life in the same ways her people did. They found strength in hope, humor, and stubbornness, qualities alien to her culture yet undeniably effective in battle. Human ships swarmed the Dominion vessels, striking from unexpected angles, using unconventional tactics that left the enemy off balance, while Lance guided his fighter closer, relying on overcharged lasers, patched engines, and sheer intuition, weaving through fire and metal like a predator hunting with both courage and cunning. Every strike human ships made was precise in its unpredictability, and every sacrifice drove home a lesson Zirek soldiers had never learned. That courage was not always about superiority, but about refusing to die quietly, about turning fear into action, and about making the enemy pay a cost even if it meant risking everything. Virexa found herself both horrified and fascinated, observing how humans improvised on the fly, using broken ships as weapons, creating chaos where the Dominion expected order, and how they seemed to thrive in the space between desperation and brilliance, finding opportunity in moments that would have paralyzed others. Explosions continued to rip through the void, lighting the faces of young pilots with fire, sweat, and determination, while Lance's patched fighter darted around larger ships, striking weak points, dodging deadly beams, and proving over and over that human ingenuity could overcome even overwhelming firepower. Communication channels crackled with reports of survival, loss, and courage, each human voice a testament to their refusal to yield, each coordinated maneuver a lesson in how determination could match, and sometimes exceed, technology. Virexa, watching every move, began to understand that humanity was not just a species of fragile bodies and emotional hearts. They were a force of adaptability, courage, and defiance, able to confront impossibly stronger enemies and find ways to turn weakness into strength. Lance glanced at her as they dodged another volley of fire, grinning despite the chaos. "See?" he shouted over the alarms. "We fight differently because we have to." Virexa's glowing eyes met his, and for the first time, a spark of respect or perhaps curiosity flared within her cold gaze. Outside, the Dominion fleet faltered, confused by tactics they could not predict, and the human ships pressed the advantage, moving with reckless precision, striking where the enemy was weakest, and proving that determination and courage could level any playing field. Time seemed to stretch as battle raged, every second a mix of death, chaos, and unexpected heroism, with human ingenuity constantly bending the rules of war and forcing even seasoned Zirek officers to rethink their assumptions about what their young human adversaries could do. Lance and Virexa continued their perilous flight through space, dodging, attacking, improvising, and surviving against impossible odds, each maneuver a mixture of desperation and brilliance, showing the truth of human strength, that even when outmatched, they fought with creativity, courage, and an unyielding will to protect their own. The Dominion flagship loomed ever larger, its weapon capable of erasing Helios 9 in moments, but the human fleet did not flinch. Instead, they adapted, using every trick, every sacrifice, every burst of ingenuity to survive, showing that humanity's greatest weapons were not guns or engines, but courage, hope, and relentless determination. And through it all, Virexa, standing beside Lance in the cockpit, realized that these humans, though fragile in body and short in history, carried something the Zirek had long lost: the unbreakable will to survive and the audacity to face death with a grin and a plan. By the end of that chaos, the battle had shown the galaxy that human courage could shine brightest in darkness, that even overwhelming odds could be challenged by cleverness, bravery, and sheer force of will, and that in this fight, humanity refused to die quietly, proving that even the coldest alien commanders had to recognize the unpredictable, unstoppable power of a determined human heart. The final moments of the battle unfolded with a terrible beauty, as Lance Corrin guided his patched-up fighter straight toward the massive Dominion flagship, the enormous black ship looming like a dark mountain in the void, its weapons bristling and ready to erase Helios 9 in a single strike. And yet, in the midst of chaos, Lance felt a strange clarity, the kind that only comes when survival and duty merge into a single purpose. Because every human who had fallen, every friend who had laughed, cried, or sacrificed themselves for the fight, filled him with an unshakable resolve. And he knew that surrender was not an option. Commander Virexa Kal was beside him, her alien senses sharpened, watching him with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity as she realized that this human, reckless and flawed, was about to attempt something she would have called impossible, a move that no tactical manual, no history of war, and no Xeric discipline could predict or counter. The human fleet surged around them, holding off enemy escorts with desperate courage, ramming ships, launching boarding parties, and creating chaos that gave Lance the narrow window he needed. Every maneuver a testament to human ingenuity and unyielding spirit, because they did not fight only for strategy or victory. They fought for hope, for home for each other, and for the impossible dream that one day their children would live in a galaxy free of tyranny. Virexa spoke sharply, warning him that the move was suicidal, that the Dominion flagship could annihilate them both in moments, yet Lance only smiled under his helmet, gripping the controls as if every pulse of his heart, every thought of Earth, and every memory of laughter and love powered the engines beneath him, propelling him into the jaws of death with purpose and precision, knowing that humans did not win by caution but by audacity. As they closed in, Lance opened the reactor core, triggering a chain reaction that would overload his fighter, a gamble that could destroy both himself and the enemy in one brilliant explosion. And in that instant, Virexa's eyes widened, realizing that humans, unlike Xerox soldiers, drew strength from risk itself, from the knowledge that even if they fell, they could leave a mark on history, a message that no alien empire had yet learned to read. That courage could be louder than weapons. Lance laughed softly, a sound full of defiance, and when Virexa asked why he would do such a thing, he told her simply that humans refuse to quit. That survival is not just about strength, but about stubbornness, creativity, and hope, qualities she had seen in every corner of the battle, in every pilot who charged without hesitation, and in every fighter held together by duct tape and determination. The Dominion flagship loomed ever closer, and the void around them became a maelstrom of fire, metal, and energy. Every pulse of enemy weapons illuminating the faces of human pilots with fear, bravery, and determination, while Lance guided his fighter with precision born of desperation, weaving between beams and blasts, calculating every fraction of a second, because he knew that one mistake would end everything. Then, at the perfect moment, he triggered the jump drive point blank, sending his fighter into a hyper-accelerated explosion that engulfed the Dominion flagship's core, detonating its main weapons and sending shockwaves of destruction through the enemy formation, disorienting them and forcing their retreat, while human ships surged forward, exploiting the chaos to strike with renewed vigor, showing that even against overwhelming odds, humans could turn desperation into victory. The shockwave of the explosion lit up space like a new sun, burning across the void and leaving the surviving Dominion ships scattered and confused, their morale broken while Helios 9 shuddered but survived, its shields holding as the human fleet, battered but alive, regrouped and prepared to repair what they could. A testament to resilience and the ability to rise from destruction stronger than before. Days later, in the quiet of a hangar, where only the hum of life support and distant repairs broke the silence, Varexa stood alone before a memorial wall, her glowing eyes reflecting the soft light as she touched a human flight badge. Remembering Lance Corrin, the mechanic who had joked at the wrong time, teased an alien commander, and then given everything to save humanity. A human whose courage had changed the course of the war and proven the strength of a species that refused to be defeated. She spoke quietly, almost to herself, acknowledging the lesson humans had taught her, that bravery was not measured in weapons or numbers, but in spirit, in willingness to risk everything, and in the audacity to face death with both humor and determination. And in that moment, she understood why humans laughed even as the universe threatened to crush them, because laughter was a weapon as sharp as any blade, and hope was a shield stronger than the strongest armor. The Dominion never underestimated humans again, because the story of Lance and Helios 9 spread quickly, whispered through the ranks of alien soldiers who had witnessed, or at least learned of, the impossible courage of a species that could fight when all seemed lost, improvise when the rules were broken, and turn fear into fuel. A lesson written not in textbooks but in fire, debris, and memory, echoing across space as a warning that humanity's will to survive was unstoppable. In the end, the galaxy learned that humans were unpredictable, fearless in the face of annihilation, and capable of brilliance when pushed to their limits, that even the most advanced alien empires could falter against the ingenuity and audacity of a determined human heart, and that sometimes the smallest joke, the tiniest spark of defiance, could ripple into acts of heroism that would change the course of history forever. Humanity had survived not because of superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but because they refused to accept death quietly, because they fought for home, for each other, and for the impossible, proving that even when surrounded by darkness, hope, courage, and creativity could burn brighter than any star, leaving a lasting mark on the galaxy and on the hearts of those who witnessed it. And in the silent hangar, Varexa whispered the truth she had finally learned, that humans could face annihilation and still rise, and that the courage of one mechanic, one pilot, one human, could turn the tide of war and remind the universe that some species, though young, were unbreakable.